to another Sips and Trips. I'm just waiting for Tania to join. We have a great night ahead of us. We're going to be talking about, of course, travel, but we're going to be talking to La India Santos of Flying First Class. So it should definitely be interesting. We're going to be talking about traveling safely, especially as female solo travelers. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining. Just waiting for Miss Tania to join. I'm going to go ahead and introduce my drink of the evening. I am drinking a non-alcoholic rosé, and I actually picked it up from Total Wine. Hey, Karen, you always the first one to say hey. Tania has officially joined, so we're going to go ahead and get it started. Hold on, let me make sure that it went through. Okay, there we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, don't you look pretty?
Thank you. I realize I'm showing too much, but that ain't what I meant to do. It just is what it is.
No such thing as showing too much, girl. You ain't showing enough.
So I actually heard you introduce your sip. What does the bottle look like? Because I'm getting ready to go towards a mocktail journey as well for a little while, so I can stop being toxic. Tell me
I'm
about
proud of you, friend. So I actually don't have the bottle with me. I'm in my office and the bottle is in the kitchen, but when we finish our call, I will show you the bottle, and I'll also put it in my stories so that you guys can see. But Total Wine, I don't know if you guys have Total Wine where you are, but they have an amazing non-alcoholic section. They have these things called Fomosas, which is like mimosas. They have No Secco, like Prosecco. We froze. Let's get Tania back.
Sorry,
me off okay. So, yeah, like they have No Secco, they have Fomosas, they have rosé, literally anything you can think of. They have a non-alcoholic version, and they also have not just like wines and stuff, but they also have spirit-free liquors as well. Because several of the ones that I featured on our Sips and Trips, you can buy at Total Wine.
Good. So for those of you who are just joining us, hello. If it's your first episode, hi, Summer. If it's your first episode of Sips and Trips, Jennifer and I talk travel while sipping our favorite beverages. I'll talk about what I'm drinking today. So I don't think people know this about me. Jennifer, there's a question in the comment asking you if your mocktail is high in sugar.
So a lot of them are actually low in sugar because they're keto friendly. It just varies. Some of the the non-alcoholic sparkling wines are definitely high in sugar, but there are also several that are pretty low in sugar, maybe like 5 carbs or less. We have technical difficulties tonight. All right. Sorry, guys. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties tonight. Sorry, guys. Bear with us one moment. There's like connectivity issues this evening. Okay, I'm actually going to stop. Okay,
thank you. So please bear with us. It did this once last episode, but for some reason it's just kicking me off. So if I get kicked off, I'm joining right back. I don't know what's going on with that. So our guest host is also here, and we're excited to introduce her in just a few moments. But my drink of tonight, so I love cream liquors. I love our creamy liqueurs. I love like Bailey's. I love Amarillo. I love, and I'm obsessed with African cream liquors. Amarillo one. And so I got this. It's called Serengeti African Cream Marula Fruit. And so it's like a Bailey's, just kind of thick, a sipper, but the flavor is great. So if you like cream drinks, I got this one from Specs, and it was pretty reasonable. And so this one is called Serengeti, and it's pretty good. It's great. Okay. So if you like creamy liquors, definitely hop in. Hey, Brenda. So before we get started, just a quick interaction we want to have with you in our comments. If you have a favorite sip or beverage that you think that either Jennifer or I should try, please drop it in the comments, whether it's a mocktail liquor or it's a liquor, because today I'm drinking a little bit. Just drop it in the comments. We would love to get some beverage ideas for upcoming episodes. Or if you have a beverage company that you feel like we should include in our episodes, definitely drop their information as well. Are you ready to add our guest host?
I'm ready, girl.
Guest host, get ready. We're getting ready to add you because I'm going to let you introduce yourself. This is an amazing travel content creator. If you don't already follow her, I guarantee that you should, because she's very good at trip planning, but she's also good at responsible travel, which is a big thing. Jennifer and I talk about that all the time. Hi. Welcome to Tips and Trips. And so I told our audience that you were going to introduce yourself and your brand. I don't want to do it. I want to make sure it gets done with the proper justice. So go ahead. Welcome.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Naindia Santos. I am, I guess, the owner now because I made it a company, but flying first class.
Congratulations.
But basically, thank you. So basically what I do is I travel to as many countries as I can, obviously, and usually try to go to the less traveled destinations or less traveled pathways, and really focusing on responsible and conscious travel, making sure that I'm being sustainable whenever I'm going somewhere, and that I'm being responsible in the practices on that country. So I really like to hone in on the local culture, what daily life is like, what do they do when they wake up and when they go to work, and how is the cooking, what are the traditions, and that's really what I'm trying to focus on now.
I love it. Can you share your information again for followers that just hopped on?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's flying first class. So that's FLYING. And then if you type PH, that should come right up. PHIRSTKLASS. I can't even spell today. But flying first class, it is spelled a little wonky because I received the name. It was my line name. I'm a soror of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And so first class was my line name, and so that's where that comes from.
Oh, that's cute. I love it.
It is. And I'm glad that you told people that, because when I was looking for you, I'm like, what am I spelling wrong? I'm like, it's flying first class. I know how to spell.
You're right.
Like, so I typed in.
And I don't fly first class.
Yeah.
You're right. I want to ask, like, are you flying first class?
I mean, maybe soon. My fiance just became a Delta flight attendant, so maybe I'll have some upgrades.
Oh, you're
maybe I'll have some upgrades in there. But I did fly first class one time by mistake. But other than that, no, I'm very budget friendly, always trying to get the good deals. And I'm always, minimizing my resources to make sure that I'm being responsible. So. Yeah.
That sounds absolutely amazing. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So I was going to ask, well, first of all, congratulations on your engagement. You're welcome. Okay. And how long have you been traveling? Not just doing travel content, but how long have you been like traveling responsibly and stuff?
Absolutely. So my first time actually traveling by myself, solo traveling, because that's actually what I used to do. I was 14 years old. And I know every time I say that, everybody's like, what? So, yeah. I was 14 years old. I went to Costa Rica by myself. I went through a program, but it was study abroad. So I was studying Spanish, but it was a program that I found randomly online. I came to my mom. I said, Mom, there's this program for Costa Rica. They had a supervised option or they had an independent option. The supervised was more expensive, and we went with the independent. So basically, I lived with a host family, but I had a key to the house. I was able to come and go as I pleased. I was able to go, wherever I wanted. Nobody was in charge of me. So yeah, I just kind of toured the country.
Wow.
That's amazing. I'm like, at 14, could I have navigated by myself? Absolutely.
It surprises me now. Don't worry, it surprises me now.
Yeah. First of all, I'm just amazed. What was that experience like navigating a country? Well, first of all, was that your first international trip?
No. So my mom made sure that, she made sure that we were well traveled, I feel like, in a way. So we had done cruises before. She had took us to Puerto Rico many times because my grandfather lived there. So she did take us to some places. And yeah, I think that was for me, that was more so like the first real international trip. That was the first time that I really honed in on another culture that was very different than mine. focusing on, obviously I knew some words in Spanish. My Spanish was actually conversational, but it wasn't great. And so there were times where I was afraid, or like I would rely on the older people. I was the youngest in the entire school, and I was the only person of color. So relying on other people and being so young, it was definitely a challenge, but I think that it was an awesome challenge to go through for sure.
Definitely. I was going to ask like how your experience was, but you definitely covered it. No, looking back, would you do it again?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I wish I could have got, my siblings to do it, but the years fly by so fast. Yeah. And, everybody's different. Everybody, what they want in life is different. And so I would love more students to go and do the same things that I did for sure. I became an ambassador. So I went back to my high school and I was doing presentations on my experience to try and get other students to get involved with it. But it was very out of the box, I think, during that time. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm thinking about like 14-year-old me, and there's absolutely no way. So you were very mature.
Yeah,
to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, definitely to a certain extent. And so, yeah, I just kind of went from there, and I learned about another program when I had to be 16 to do that one. And I learned about that while I was in Costa Rica. And we waited. I came back home. I said, Mommy, I got another program that they told me about, but I have to be 16. So we waited until I was 16, and I was off to Dominican Republic for 2 months.
Wow.
So it was a very rural area, and volunteered, and was the only volunteer that spoke English in my entire community. And that was what really projected me into responsible travel, sustainable travel, just travel in general, and being like, this is something that I really want to do. So that experience was like top tier for me.
What's your definition of responsible travel?
Yeah, so for me, I think it can be defined many ways. I think for me, it's making sure that as a traveler, my behaviors not only aspiring other travelers to participate in behaviors and activities that are sustainable, but also that I am giving back in a way to the places that I visit. And so I always say, a lot of people say when they go to a place, they try to leave it better than they found it. And for me, I always say most places leave me better than they found me. And so I think also being a responsible traveler is being conscious of not only what you're doing and your actions while you're in the country, but then also what you're taking away from that country. And if you're being an active participant in making sure that you're knowing about that country, you're knowing you're doing research, you're knowing about the people, and you're not just going there to just say, hey, I went there, right? Because there's so much more than that. And so I think that's it for me, more so the sustainable piece, and then also the societal part of it.
I think that's amazing, and I also think it's amazing that you learned those lessons so young. I wouldn't have even thought to look up a program where I could study abroad. I really didn't start even thinking about study abroad until college. Mm-hmm. But I think through my travels, I kind of recognized the importance of sustainable and responsible travel. I shared this story on another episode of when I went to the Phi Phi Islands in Thailand, and how I didn't even want to snorkel because it was so much debris in the water. Their travel is not regulated. Some places you go to, they tell you only wear this type of sunscreen, make sure you don't litter, follow these biodiversity rules. Thailand was not like that. And the sea water is so beautiful and so blue, and realize it's being ruined by tourists. I'm like, what makes you go somewhere like this and say, I'm gonna throw my trash in the water? Mm-hmm. How does that even happen? And I think that a lot of times when people travel, they don't realize the impact that being not responsible as a tourist can have on the environment that you're visiting. Kind of like with the Taj Mahal. It's getting ready to close because of tourists are making it erode. Kind of like Chichen Itza out in Mexico. You used to be able to climb it. You can't do that anymore. Going to Egypt, there are certain pyramids that have now been closed off to the public simply because people don't value that a lot of these things are things that have been sustained over time, and our generation is the one that's kind of destroying it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes me so sad. I haven't been to any of the places that you mentioned, but I do remember when I went to the Netherlands, and I really wanted to go to the I Amsterdam sign. And then I think like 2 weeks after I got back, they closed it down permanently. because of how how tourists were treating it. And I feel like, I can't speak for other countries, but Americans, look how we treat our land, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember that commercial. It's a really, really old commercial with the indigenous man, and he came off his little canoe and he looked around and was like, you can look it up. It was like a creepy commercial to me when I was a kid, but he was looking around like.
That was a DC commercial, but go ahead.
What'd you say?
That was a commercial that was only played in DC or Baltimore. It didn't make it here.
No, it's a nationwide commercial. It's like, if you find it's a well-known commercial, but it because it used to come on Nickelodeon and like at late at night. But the guy, he had his little canoe and he came into the water, and then he looked around and they were like throwing food, throwing like all the smog, all the pollution, and then when it closed up on his face, he was crying because it's like, look what you've done to done to America. The commercial was like super old. It's like from the 70s or something like that.
I have to look it up.
It's just a reminder of like, like we really like are trashing here. So the people don't have that same value. Of course, they're not gonna have that same value in America.
Yeah.
I mean, in other countries.
And I think about it, I'm from Texas. One thing you will never catch me doing is littering. I do not litter. That's one thing we were taught from a young age. Don't mess with Texas. Don't litter. All those things. I don't even think about littering. And I was on a trip and one of my friends got ready to throw something on the ground, and I was like, I picked it up. I was like, oh, you could have gave it to me to throw away. We're not ever gonna do that. Ever. Go. Not around me. And I don't think before then I had ever actually witnessed someone littering. And I was like, whoa, people really do this. I'm just confused because I'm from Texas and we know you'll get a big ticket for that here.
And that's how it should be. I think like where I'm from, Southeast in Pennsylvania, so I grew up right outside of Philly, and Philly has a bad nickname, Philadelphia, and it kind of, sometimes it's like, dang, this is home, but there's so many areas of the city that need so much cleaning, and I guess having those certain strategies implemented. And it's important because now we're seeing everybody's trying to go green and do sustainable this and sustainable that. And it's because they're realizing the effects that our behaviors have had. And it's just going to continue. I mean, we can only do our part, and we can do that a little bit. And like being responsible, it's not, some people are just like, well, I can't always, worry about this or worry about if something's plastic or this or that. And it's not to say it has to be always, everything has to be eco-friendly that you use or things of that sort, but it just comes in different ways. So even the activities that you do when you're abroad, or just simply, certain resources. So for example, if you're staying in a hotel, obviously you're paying for it. Even if you're staying in a resort, yes, you're paying for it. But do you have to excessively use the resources? No, you don't have to leave things on just because you're like, oh, well, I paid for it. And I've heard that so many times. Especially if you're in certain islands, these resources are scarce. Right. So they're telling you it for a reason. If you need your things washed or you need your room turned, yeah, it's nice to have a clean towel. Okay, how long can you go? I don't like to go more than 2 days using the same towel. So I get it. So that's something that I would be like, okay, that's not something I'm willing to bargain with. But if I don't need my sheets changed every single day, I'm going to make sure that I put that sign in the door. They don't have to turn down my room every single day. So it's just little behaviors like that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to. It even goes down to like local traditions, our dress, things of that sort.
Agreed. And I know that's one of the reasons too why a lot of resorts have gone to, you have to leave your room key inside the in order for the lights to work, you have to put your room key inside the key. And that's to sustain their resources. And I completely get it. When I think of responsible tourism either, and I know people are going to be mad at me for this, it's fine, I don't care. One thing I refuse to do is swim with dolphins. I've done it once, and when I saw how the dolphins were treated in the cages they were put into, I don't swim with dolphins. When I went to Thailand, I refused to ride the elephants. And part of what made me not ride the elephants is because on our way to the thing, I had already said I wasn't doing it. But I went with my friends because it was part of a whole tour. I just set out that part. On the way there, a baby was being broken. An elephant was being broken. And the way that they break them is by chaining them real close to like the area, like pretty much where they don't have any room until they eventually, like they pretty much torture them until they bow down essentially, which is what they do. And I'm like, I can't be a part of some of these things. Like, you're not going to mistreat these animals and then I pay you. You're not feeding them well. Even sometimes when you go on those tours, can you see where those animals are staying? And if you see where they're staying, sometimes you would be like, there's no way. The dolphins are literally in a lot of places housed in cages the entire night until it's time for them to go to work.
And that goes with yeah, and even with the elephant thing, that's a really big thing. So when I was in India, I was searching and searching because, you know, it's India. There's so many elephants. They have elephant rides, all types of activities with elephants. And I'm like, I don't want to ride an elephant. I started doing research, and that's when I found out that even though elephants are so big, their spines are actually very weak. And so you really shouldn't be riding them
the way you do that.
Exactly. You really shouldn't be riding them. And so what I did was I found an elephant sanctuary. Yep. And I was able to go there and do just natural things with them, feeding, things that they do every single day. I was able to do with them. And so that was really, really cool. And then it started, I think like probably before or after I had rode a camel. And then that was like, should I have done this? Should I have not? Did I do enough research? So you start thinking about different, and like I have that picture and I absolutely love that picture, but I'm like, you know, I'm keep it, but at the moment it wasn't something I thought about, and now I've been able to, you know, kind of internalize that and remember, okay, did I do enough research for this activity type of thing? So I know it looks fun, guys. Even the lions, I see it all the time. It's not something I personally would do, and it's not to say, oh, don't do it. It's to say, think about your choices.
And
that's really what it is.
Agreed wholeheartedly. And we also have to realize the value of our dollar as American tourists. Like, decide where you want to spend your money. For me, before I pay for a tour where I can ride an elephant, like he said, I'm going to the sanctuary. So that's fine. If just about whatever you want to do, there's a safe space for it. You just may have to do a little bit of research. When I went to Thailand, I went to, what's it called? Tiger, whatever. I actually went.
Yeah, I think so.
Out for some reason. The elephant thing didn't sit well with me, but I thought it was a good idea to go be in there, not ride, but to go in there with the tigers. Again, I probably was drunk. It wasn't very reasonable. So, went in there with the tigers, but there were certain things in there that made me nervous. Like, the only warning or prep that you got was, if something happens, don't run. So do I stand here and get ate up? And I felt like, you know, then I realized that the tiger I took a picture with, he was high as a kite. Like, he was high. And then another one, because they have several tigers in the open area. You know, you have to pay extra to get in the room with one tiger. In hindsight, I think I would have wanted to be with one tiger because some of the tigers just did not look content. There was one I took a picture with. I'll try to post it in my story. I was so uncomfortable. I felt like he was uncomfortable. And the only rule I had if he got the tripping was, don't run.
Don't run.
So.
Yeah. It's a no for me.
Yeah. No, it's a no for me too. It was
the way my luck is set up, I would
have
to be today. Okay? Because anything that can happen, gonna happen to me. And I'm gonna be the one that got ate by the tiger. And I didn't run either. He just decided she ain't running, I'm going her.
He looked like chicken. So he decided that's what he was going for. And the thing is, like, I'm black. So once people start running, it's already naturally in me, well, I'm gonna run too. So especially if I don't have like a built-in plan, like, okay, if Jennifer run, you stand right there. That means she's going to be ate first. Like, you're going to be fine. But I wouldn't even know what else to do.
Exactly.
Now, I wouldn't let you get at Jennifer. We're going to have to fight the tiger together. But what I'm saying is, I ain't fighting. You're going to want to. That's our best bet. You're going to have to.
I'm not fighting. I'm faking. Like, I'm done.
You don't even go in the first place.
No. And but you know, and the thing about it is that the photo looks cool, right?
It does. And the videos are bomb. So I'll give it to them.
Yeah,
the photo be looking cool.
Like when I went to a whole vibe.
Yes. Let me tell you when I felt bad. I went to Morocco. It was my first time ever in Africa. And I think on our first day there, we did camel riding, right? Everybody was so excited. In the middle of my ride, I felt bad because the babies was following us. Right? Because they just wanted to be with their mom. They was nibbling at my leg like, ma'am, get off my mommy. And I felt really bad. I was like, dang, she don't even want to be working this hard.
Yeah.
The baby just want to cuddle with the mom. And I was like, you know, this is just kind of sad. But then also after I did it and I went back and I looked at like some photos of elephants in Thailand and how their backs are sunken in because they being ridden on and they really shouldn't be, you know, ridden on. It just kind of makes you feel,
it does.
makes you feel bad. And there's plenty of other ways for you to get cool pictures that don't involve
Animals.
and you know don't involve don't of animals, or it can involve animals in their natural habitat, or like you said, Lindia, like you said, a sanctuary.
Yeah.
In Australia, I went to Featherdale Wildlife Reserve, and it's a sanctuary for wild animals. So I was able to take the photo with the kangaroo because he was in a natural habitat. It wasn't, you know, for anybody. Nobody was trying to actually harm them.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna be honest too. And again, this is probably something I shouldn't say. When it comes to animals, I realized I don't really like a bunch of wild animals. And I think that what did it for me was when I went to Bali, to Monkey Forest, and the monkeys are just wild. Like, Monkey Forest is, I think, where they live, but they roam the town. They'll come in your hotel room if you stay there. They'll steal your stuff. And when I watch them try to snatch a chain off a man's neck, and I'm like, I don't want to even be out here and be a part of this. Like, they're everywhere. It's too much. Like, I'm not a huge animal person.
I'm not an animal person either.
But that's them in their natural habitat. But again, I wanted them to not be stealing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like, for me, the best way that I've seen animals, especially wild ones like lions and tigers and all types of things, was in the Masai Mara. So it was in Kenya, and it was beautiful, and it's absolutely amazing because you're on a hunt for to see all these animals, and you're looking out for them, and if you don't see them, you don't see them. They're not, you don't have somebody dragging them to you and, you know, enforcing them to take pictures with you. But it's definitely a big thing. And I think the more people, you know, research and things of that sort, then hopefully it'll be a practice that can, I guess, get done with. But there's always going to be people that want to do those types of activities. But like Jen was saying, there's so many more activities to do. So much more, especially cultural. Yeah. So many.
And I know the safari I went on, and I went to the Serengeti and to the Ngorongoro crater in Africa, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. It truly was. In the safari that I went on, we did one night inside of a luxury bungalow or cabin. Then we did one night of tent safari, and being able to see animals, like you said, in their natural habitat, where you're not the king of the jungle. Like, you get out the vehicle, we don't know what's happening out here. And, you know, and you think of lions, you know, you think of giraffes, you think of zebras. What I did not think about were huge rattlesnakes. And so we were driving down the street, and we got to see 2 huge rattlesnakes mating. And when our vehicle started coming down the road, they kind of fell off to the side in the brush. But when they went off into the brush, they disappeared. And I was thinking in my head, they're there. They're huge. But the fact that in their natural habitat, you can't even see them. Going on a safari, especially if you go on a good safari, it really makes you appreciate nature a lot more. It makes you appreciate the role that animals were supposed to play in nature. Lions are natural hunters, you know, and things like that. So putting them in an environment to where they become pets, that's the reason why you have these stories sometimes about people getting tigers and lions and them attacking them, because these animals were never meant to be that. If you ever go to Colorado, there's an animal sanctuary there in Colorado, and it's huge. And what it is, it's a rescue. They even have some of the cats from Tiger King there. And
oh, wow.
They do. And so, but when you're there, like, they're all in the same habitat. Bears. It's bears, different kinds of wildcats, your tigers, your lions, and ligers. And what they said is that the animals that came, every animal there has been rescued from somewhere. Some of them were pets. Some of them came from zoos, and they're allowed to roam. But what they say is that it gets dangerous there because these are still wild animals, and it doesn't matter how docile they seem, they will hurt you. And they were saying that with the animals that came from Tiger King, you know, the way that it was kept up was like he was taking good care of them, feeding them right, and that kind of stuff. But the staff member that was talking to me was saying that when his cats got there, that it Joe Exotic, that when Joe Exotic's cats got there, that they were not well behaved, that they caused a lot of problems with the other animals that have been there because of the way that they've been taught to socialize.
Oh wow.
I believe it. And once you see them in their natural habitat, I'm telling y'all, everybody that's listening, you become bougie.
Yeah.
You become bougie in a different way. You don't even want to see them in a zoo or anything like that because the experience is just that awesome. Like, you don't even want to see
and
that.
Traveling to Africa just in its whole, when you go to places like Zanzibar, I've been to 30 plus countries, and that still was some of the most beautiful water I've ever seen. When you go to Cape Town and you see you can really live luxury, you can go to Nobu. I tell this story. We went for my sister's birthday. We ended up being, and so her birthday night, we went to Nobu, in the one and only in Cape Town. Nobu in Houston, you're going to spend, for 3 people eating and living and drinking, living your best life, you're going to spend at least $300-400. Our tab for all 3 of us was $125. We were doing things like go and have bougie brunches on the harbor. Whole brunch, you done drunk every mimosa in the place, $20. Mm-hmm. When you start seeing how far your money go and what your experience can look like, I'm not going to Miami unless it's for something special. I can't.
I saw somebody post recently. It was like places I've been that was cheaper than Miami, and I'm like, Africa, hands down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I've only done 3 countries in Africa, but all 3 were extremely affordable. Yeah. Like, I'm talking like 4 or 5 star. We stayed in a villa that came with a private driver and a housekeeper, and it was like maybe $1,400. The house had an elevator in it. I mean, I was acting like I had never had anything before because I'm like, yo, what is this? Because, you know, in Miami, that price is not getting you nothing. Nothing like that. But I did want to circle back about being a responsible tourist, because a part of being responsible is following directions, right? The rules are in place for a reason. And I'm going to tell a little tiny story. I'm not going to be extra, Tania, I promise.
Oh, I want you to be. Those are my favorite.
So, I went to South Africa. We went on a safari, right? The guy was like, he said, the tour guide said, you guys can stand. He said, you can lean out the window. He said, but if you are on the right side and there's a picture you want to take out the left window, then hand your phone to someone so that they can take the picture for you. And he said, whatever you do, don't lean on the doors, right? Don't lean on the doors. We go to an area where he was like, there may be like a lot of lions out here. So, you know, we're all being safe. We actually see a lion. He's asleep. And this woman leans on the door. And guess what happened?
The door opened.
She fell out. Oh. And almost as soon as she fell out, the lion, he was asleep, and he kind of like went to get up, but the girl who was sitting in front of me did not even let that lady's feet hit the ground. She grabbed that lady and threw her back on. But don't y'all know that lady's husband never got up? He sat right where he was at. He ain't asked her, was she okay? Nothing.
Because he knew
all that man thought about was that my wife about to get eaten. And I got like this life insurance policy. Because what if like jumping out there to save her? If she actually would have got I would have been like, dang man, I loved her.
Right.
And that was it.
What you were
I love what you said.
Huh?
Yeah, I love what you said about following directions, and especially like rules being in place for a reason. I'm very much a rule follower, and I can say the people around me, even my mom that raised me, not a rule follower at all. And I think breaking rules is fun in certain times. And I think with travel, sometimes it's just not a good thing to do, especially when you're a visitor somewhere. You breaking the rules is not going to be received very well. And then also you're putting yourself in a bad situation as well. So I'm very much a stickler for rules, making sure that I know even laws and just different things like that, so that when you're traveling, you know that you're being respectful, and then you also know that you're being safe. Because a lot of people, and going back to, you know, us in the United States, sometimes this is kind of like our little snow globe, and we don't go outside of it, and we think that it's oh so safe here sometimes, and that everywhere in the world is bad. But when you get out in the world, there are really great places, but you just have to know how to navigate them. The media can tell you everything they want, but you have to know how to navigate them. So if you're deciding that you're going to go to this place and you're not going to listen, or even going back how you mentioned like certain places like the Taj Mahal and things like that, when they get there, or when you get there, they tell you, don't touch the walls, don't do this. They're telling you that for a reason, to preserve these, amazing places for years to come. And I've seen TikTok videos of people destroying things that have been in place for thousands and tens of thousands of years, and thinking that it's funny. And I can't fathom why anybody would think that was okay. So that is responsible travel.
Yeah. Or even following, like you said, not just following rules, but following the customs and traditions because it's respectful. And because we're American, we feel like, most trouble we can get out of, it's not a big deal, everybody does it. But even with Brittany Griner's arrest, and I'm sorry to bring it up because I know a lot of people are touchy about that topic, there are certain places where drugs will land you in jail. Places people like to travel. Bali is one. You can get the death penalty for drugs in Bali. If you go to Dubai, what people don't realize with Dubai, let's say that you have a medical emergency and you have to go to the hospital and they draw your blood. If your blood comes back positive for a substance, that can lead to you ended up in court behind stuff. I read a story recently where a man had a medical emergency on a plane. He ended up having to get rushed to the hospital when the plane landed. He tested positive for marijuana. It's all great that you came from probably a place where marijuana is legal or not. In the U.S., that's not a big deal. He ended up facing charges in Dubai. And it's like, you can't be surprised when you play stupid games that win stupid prizes. It's not America. America is more free than a lot of places. And I think that because of our discontent with America at times, we still don't realize the amount of freedoms that we have.
We do. We have a lot of them, And I think, especially when people are traveling and even going back to dress, that's big for me because I've been told, well, I'm paying my money, I can dress how I want. And it's like, if you're going to a country that is very religious and has a certain type of dress that they expect people to wear, you want to follow that. When I was in Somaliland, they were so appreciative and constantly thanking me because I had a lot of garments that I had got from India. And I was like, you know what, I can just wear this in Somaliland because it covered everything. They came with scarves. I could cover my head when I needed to. And when I was in Somaliland, I had all of the women were just so appreciative. And to feel that was a different level because if you don't respect that, then you're not really going to understand why they feel that way.
Yeah.
And you're coming into their home. You're a visitor, and people forget that. Yes, you paid your money to get there, but you're a visitor and you're coming into their home. So imagine when you have visitors, you want people to take their shoes off when you come in your house, and you have someone that refuses to do it. And you're going to be like, get out of my house then.
Right.
So it's just certain things like that that people have to be mindful of. And I know here in the U.S., I like my body out. I have shorts on right now. I like my legs out, everything. But I'm conscious of whenever I'm traveling to certain places, even going to certain temples and things of that sort. I see pictures sometimes where, women like to do the, the bare chest type of pictures. I think it's so cute. Being mindful of where you're doing those things.
Right.
So that way, okay, it's okay for me to do it here, but it might not be okay in this particular area. When I lived in India, I knew it wasn't anything like that was prohibited, but I knew it was kind of looked down upon to wear spaghetti strap or shorts and things of that sort. So I made sure not to draw attention to myself in doing those practices. So it's just little things like that. And it really goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah. And that's part of traveling responsibly. And we sometimes negate research and instead go to TikTok and Instagram. Everybody now wants to travel certain places. You want to travel to Bali. Make sure you know what you're getting into when you go to Bali. Everybody wants to go to Africa. Know if you need visas. Know if you need vaccines. Know what you need. I've literally had people that got on the plane and arrived with nothing they were supposed to have. And they think you can talk your way out of things, finesse your way out of things. You are not in America, baby. These people need this stuff. But I do want to circle back to something you said. You said when I lived in India.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I actually, I did my master's at the University of Pennsylvania, and I got my master's in international educational development. And I actually graduated, the COVID happened. So I graduated in 2019, December. And before that, we were required to do an international internship abroad, and it had to be for at least 3 months. So I did go to India. I think it was May of 2018, and I worked with Sesame Street. So it was Sesame Workshop.
Cool.
Sesame Workshop is the nonprofit that is responsible for everything Sesame Street. And most people don't know, but Sesame Street is in many, many countries. And a lot of the countries will have a character that is that kind of embodies the things that the children in that country might go through. So for example, in India, the main character, her name is Chamki, and she has a schoolgirl outfit because a lot of times it's difficult for girls to go to school. Or I think it was in Mali or one of the other countries in Africa, there's a character that has that is HIV positive. And it's just because in that particular area, there's a lot of issues with that. And so the lessons and things that come through the episodes is to help children, navigate those certain, issues and circumstances, and to be better educated. So I worked with Sesame Workshop, and then I did Malaysia and Vietnam solo, and then I came home. So yeah, India gave me a backbone. I wrote a blog post about it. I'm revamping my blog, so eventually I'll be able to share those out again, but it gave me a backbone. India was a huge culture shock for me. It was not anything that I was used to. I think, like, when I think back on my experience, I'm like, wow, I really did that, because it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. The culture was just so different from what I was used to. But I think in certain ways I am blessed because I was able to blend in a little bit. And I think that is a privilege in certain areas. Like when I go to Latin America and things like that, there's certain times that I'm able to blend in, and I don't stick out like a sore thumb like most people would. So a lot of times people thought I was South Indian. But yeah, India was interesting. I mean, I think here, it's not weird for somebody to stare at you in India, and to have someone in your face just staring was very, very difficult for me. Or there's no sense of personal space. You could just, everybody would be close up on you. People will cut you in line, back where I'm from, people fight over things like that. And it was just, that wasn't a thing in India. And so I had to get used to that. And also being a woman and being solo, I became very tense right here. I used to have like a ton of knots because I was always on guard and I was always ready for anything to happen. And nothing really happened. Most people were kind. And I think that comes from what we hear. Again, going back to media, yes, there's issues, but I think sometimes we internalize those things. And I think India did very well with women. Like even for the train, the front of the train was dedicated to women only. So I would just get on the front of the train and I would be, it would just be women, it would be open. So they were implementing certain policies. And I think when we listen to certain things, we're not giving certain places credit for what they're doing. So yeah.
I could definitely agree with that.
That's I feel like that happens so often. It's like hearing people say like, oh, you shouldn't travel here, you shouldn't travel there. And it's like, okay, some spots are not safe, right? It is not the entire country, and I'll use Mexico as an example because, there was some unrest that just happened with the cartel. And everyone was like, you keep going to Mexico. And I'm like, first of all, a lot of times when these things are happening to people in Mexico, they are in places that the State Department says don't travel to, right? So if you choose to do it, it's enter at your own risk, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen to you. But when I went to Tijuana in February, the day before we left, we went. Somebody was like, don't go. It's dangerous. And I was like, okay, well, I haven't heard that. And I definitely checked the State Department website often. And it just said exercise caution. And to me, that means exercise the same caution I do when I go outside to walk my dog at night. Right?
Exactly.
So, we just have to, I need people to start keeping that in mind. The entire India as a whole is not the whole country of India is not going to be unsafe, but there might be tiny pockets where it's like, okay, yeah, probably shouldn't go there, probably shouldn't go here. So I think people really need to learn how to keep that in mind.
And also being aware of scams. So I think when people have a bad experience somewhere, then they expect everyone to have a bad experience. Or they say, oh, well, that's why I didn't travel to that place. So going back to like Mexico, a lot of people were in the comments when that post came out. And they were like, see, this is why I never go to Mexico. That really wasn't the reason you never went.
You didn't go because you want to have a passport.
But really, like, honestly, when those types of things happen, you really just have to be vigilant, just like you would at home. I actually have made 2 solo travel safety videos. I'll actually be reposting those this month because I think June is like National Safety Month or something, but they went really well. And people were just like, wow, like I'll definitely start implementing these, because some people don't know, it's just common sense. And going back to, yeah, it's really common sense, but it's really not that common for some people. So I had to make the videos, and people used to be like, well, this is common sense, wouldn't I do this at home? And I'm like, yeah, but people don't realize that. And some places and some people's homes are different. You might be in a city that you feel, you know, you don't need to implement those certain things. You may come from an area where you don't need to lock doors or do this or do that. But when you're traveling outside of it, you don't think about it because you've been so conditioned based off of how you live already. And then also going back to research, when certain scams happen. So one of the things with India, they have a ton of scams that happen against tourists. And you can actually just look these up on YouTube. And people talk about them on YouTube, all these different types of scams. And different things happen in different countries too. So that's another thing that I started implementing in my research tactics, is looking up, you know, common scams that happen. So that way, when it happens to you, you're like, okay, yeah, this is a scam, and it's not going to be something that is detrimental to your trip. So it really just goes back to research. And there's so many different avenues of research nowadays that make it so easy now. It's really not that hard to sit. You don't have to sit there for hours. There's so many Facebook groups, so many people to ask, depending on what country you're going to, that it really takes one click of a button. But I know most people want to do the resort life, and that's okay. Most people want to, for travel for most people is escaping from reality. And I completely understand that. But if we're being realistic, it's still somebody's home and it's still somebody's life. So yes, you can be in a resort, but let's not, you know, take the bus through the poor areas and go, oh, look, the poor people, and then go back. You know, do a little bit more than that. Figure out where you're spending your money. Are you supporting local businesses, and things of that sort? So I definitely think just being mindful, it really isn't. It's not as difficult as many people think.
You hit on 2 things that I want to discuss. The first one was being like not just having research, but also when you talked about the bus coming through the neighborhoods that are poor. I've literally had people traveling, not in resort towns, like going to other places and being like, well, I want to see where the hood is and that kind of stuff. No, you don't, because you have to be prepared with taking you and your luxury lifestyle, because even if you don't make a lot of money in the U.S., over there you are rich. And you're basically, what are you going over there to see if you're not going to support what they're doing? Are you going to just say, I went through the hood and whatever? And it's like, what makes that economically responsible? Then you're mad when you got robbed, you know, or you got stuck somewhere, and any of those things. And for me, it always goes back to travel.state.gov. Know what areas you're supposed to stay out of. With Mexico, there was never a warning for Cancun, Cabo, Puerto Vallarta. You've been supposed to stay out of border towns. And if you went to travel.state.gov as a knowledgeable traveler, you would have thought that a new warning had not been issued for Mexico. The warning was still months old. They were never, people are not really supposed to go to a lot of border towns. We know that the cartel was cutting up there. So if you went there, you get what the people told you were going to get. And when you're looking at content and you see people like, you know, the flying dresses things, and all the beauty and things like that, make sure that you are also, sometimes because we're content creators, people don't know what we go through to get this content. We make certain things look good, but I always try to be realistic and say, yes, this picture looks good, but I went through A, B, C, D, and G, and I wouldn't come back here ever again. But that's why it's important to be a responsible traveler. That's why it's important to do your research and just be reminded of the cultural sensitivity that'll be required when you get to some of these places.
And go ahead, Jen.
I'm sorry. And follow instructions. Like that is such a big one. I recently told somebody, she was like, I can't wait to travel with you. And I said, oh, you will never travel with me.
Yo, can't travel with everybody.
Because you don't listen. And for me, I'm gonna tell another story.
And
I always got a story, okay? So,
sorry.
I went on a trip with my friends, right? Because everybody be like, girl, plan a group trip. I said, okay, I'm going to test it out with my friends, right? COVID was live and in full effect. I sent the email. I said, okay, guys, This is the price of the trip. Everybody gonna have their own room. The rooms are $300 per person for 5 days, right? So that was total $300, right? I said in order to get into the country, we need a COVID test. And here is the link to buy the COVID test. I know you can buy this at CVS, but don't buy it at CVS because you need to be able to take it in front of a proctor, right? Please buy it from this link. If you don't take the test in front of the proctor, the test will not be valid and you will not be admitted into the country if you do not have a COVID test that is negative, certified from the whatever, okay? I made sure I was clear, and here are the questions that I got. So are we all sharing the room? So is it $300 per night? Are we splitting the $300 between all of us? But the biggest one was the night before we're leaving for this trip. Jenna, I messed up. What did you do? I didn't take my COVID test in front of the proctor. Why? Because I already told you in the email that you cannot take this test by yourself. You have to take the test in front of the proctor. So sis almost missed out on the trip because she didn't follow instructions. Not only that, I don't know about everywhere, but you can't use your cell phone in customs. You can go to jail for using your cell phone in customs. The sign says cell phone no for a reason.
I've never experienced a customs that didn't have that policy.
Okay, me neither, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't.
But you'll find people talking on the phone.
Talking on the phone, texting, taking pictures. Here in DC, we have the African American Museum, right? In one part of the museum, there's the Emmett Till Memorial, right? It says no cell phones. I was in there one day recently, and the man took a whole phone call. Took a phone call in the middle of it.
And that destroys everybody else's experience because you have to stand in line and get into it anyway.
Exactly.
And while we're on the topic of cell phones and things of that sort, I kind of have like a list for you guys on things that I feel implement what a responsible traveler embodies. And one of the things that I think need to be talked about is taking pictures without people's permission.
Yeah.
Especially when you are abroad. Yes, like at the end of the day, the people there, they might be interesting and you want to savor the moment, but please ask permission. It takes 2 seconds. And a lot of times, even if you don't speak the language, the sign language is enough. You can say, can I take a picture? You can ask them what they're doing and I'll take a picture of what you're doing and things of that sort. And even for me, like as a content creator, my fiance had to get with me because I hate pulling my phone out. You would think that I'm always on my phone. And when I'm traveling, I actually don't like pulling my phone out at all. It takes a lot for me to video the stuff that I videotape if I'm on the street. Now, if I'm in somebody's home, I know them, that's different. But when I'm out on the street, it's very difficult for me to pull my phone or camera out because I'm trying so hard to make sure that I'm doing it in a respectful manner. But just asking for permission. And sometimes you'll get those people that are like, you got to tip me or something. But, you can simply ask for permission. But don't think that, taking pictures of children and things of that sort is okay all the time. It's really not. That's a huge thing for me.
That's definitely a big one. And then you mentioned about people tipping to take pictures. It is vital that you tip before you take pictures because if they see that you, in some countries, if they see that you have taken a picture, I watched this happen to someone. They took a picture, didn't tip, they smashed their camera.
That can happen. They can get angry, but it's definitely one of imagine you just doing something that you do every single day and multiple days throughout the week, you have somebody with a camera in your face and they don't really care. You're kind of like on display, but this is your life. So you're not getting paid to do this. This is just your daily life. And yet you have people that are taking video and then they go back and they, live whatever lavish lifestyle, whether it be lavish or they write blogs, they can say whatever they want and you kind of have no input. And so a lot of times if we were just in Barbados probably like 2 months ago and we actually got lost and I seen these farmers working and I was like, you know what, babe, I actually want to ask them what they're doing. I wanted to take pictures, but I want to know, what are you doing? And is it okay for me to take pictures? And I actually got a full interview out of them, and being able to ask them, like, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? What type of vegetables are these? How are they harvested? When did you start doing this? Are you from Barbados? Like, all these different things, to actually get to know them, get to know their names. And that way, when I'm putting out the story and I ask them, is it okay for me to post this or post to your story? Now, they can say, oh yeah, it's okay. And now there's other people that might want to visit them or go to their farm and things of that sort.
Right.
So it's really, really important. And it's a way that you can actually support their business. You can give them that promo because they're giving you a huge piece of their life. So don't think that every promo needs to be paid, you know? So they're giving you a huge piece of themselves. And it's very big to make sure that you internalize their story and make sure that you're getting it right as well.
What are some other ways that you feel, some other characteristics that describe a responsible traveler?
Yeah, actually, was minimizing waste. So I think I talked about that, like, with resources, and we talked about that with littering. But just minimalizing the amount of waste that you have, and making sure, I know our eyes can be bigger than our stomachs sometimes, making sure that when you're consuming things, especially if you're on a tour and things of that sort, you're not being overly greedy. And sometimes when I travel, I might do homestays. And so sometimes a person is actually giving me the food that they have for their families. So if you're doing an activity like that, or a tour like that, where you're going into somebody's home and they're offering food, or they offering, whether it be something to drink, making sure that you are being mindful of how much you're taking. And if and sometimes they'll say, no, more, and that's okay. Then you do that, but you don't want to come in and then be overly greedy and taking all of their resources, because I've been in situations where that's all they have, and they're giving it to me as a respectful manner as a guest. And then also just asking questions. So I know Jen constantly said following directions. If you don't understand, really asking questions is the best way. And we have Google Translate now, so you can use those, but really asking questions to get clarity, because I speak Spanish, but I don't speak every other language. And I know there's been so many instances where people don't understand the language, and instead of saying, you know, I don't understand, they'll just say yes, and just sit there and say yes. Please don't do that, because when you do that, it's like a misunderstanding. Everybody's confused. You might be saying yes to something that you really didn't want to say yes to.
Right.
So it's okay to ask questions and get clarification on things, even clarification on if it's an action that they're doing or activity that they're doing, making sure you're getting clarification on that activity. Or if there's, if you're in an art gallery, for example, and it's like an artist. I recently was just in Puerto Rico, and I was in an art gallery, and I'm trying to do the content on it. I'm like, oh man, I forget that artist's name. I had to look back in my pictures, because you don't want to get those things wrong.
Right.
You know, those are things that they might just be content to you, but they're somebody's lives. And so it's something that in somebody's work. So you really want to get certain things right, getting their names. If you're going to post, make sure you're getting those things. And so now I'm like, oh, I need to travel with a notebook. I usually put notes in my phone, but it's just really mindful to make sure you're understanding people's stories, I think, as a responsible traveler. You don't need to sit there and know their whole life, but just knowing who they are. They're not just a mannequin there for your entertainment.